So if you're betting on tennis or you have some amazing Betfair trading strategy, you're looking to solve the same problem, and that is, what are the odds going to be either now or at some point in the future? To be able to do that, you need to be able to create a tennis model that will produce and tell you what those odds are. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. If you're interested in trading with BetAngel, then visit our website where you can download a free trial of BetAngel Professional and BetAngel Trader. If you want to learn how to use them, then visit the Academy where we give you a detailed, structured walkthrough of each product. And if you're an existing user, then head on over to the forum where we have a load of files for you to download to customize and use within BetAngel. So if you're betting on tennis or you're Betfair trading on tennis, there's one question that should always be forefront in your mind. And that is, what are the odds? Or what should be the odds? Because if you're placing a value bet, what you're attempting to do is you're basically saying, these are what the odds should be, this is what the odds currently are, and that gap in between those 2 points is the amount of value that you get, and that will determine your stake and how much you profit in the long run. And if you do that, then you will make profit over the long run because you're betting at odds that are better than the market is currently forecasting. So to answer that question, you need to know, how do you calculate those odds and how do you understand what those odds should be versus what you can see in the market. Now, if you're Betfair trading, what will happen is you'll be basically saying, this is the current score, these are where the odds are currently at, this is the score that I'm looking for, this is where the odds will be, and you will profit from the difference between those 2 points. And both of them require you to understand what the odds will be or where they will be at some point in the future. And that is where your profit is being derived from. So fundamentally speaking, what you have to do is actually understand how to create those odds based upon what you can see in front of you, or historical data, the score in the match. All of those factors will determine exactly what those odds are. But how on earth do you do that? And more specifically, how do you do that on tennis? Well, we're going to go through that in this video, and we're going to actually look at some statistics, and we're going to actually look at some odds, and we're going to basically join those two up and show you how you can use some basic statistics to create a set of odds. And we're going to compare that to the statistics to be able to forecast what other elements actually should be. And that will give us the proof that we require that we do know exactly what we're going to talk about. And to do that, we need to come up with some sort of fundamental understanding of exactly what we're trying to aim for. So when we look, for example, at football, and I have done plenty of videos on that, I shall put some links below so that you can watch those videos. It's quite simple to understand exactly what we're attempting to do. We're basically saying, how many goals are there going to be and how are they going to be split up between the two teams? From that, we can start to work out what the odds should be before the start of the match and as the match is actually underway. We can actually create a model for football by using some very simple statistics. Now, the great thing is we can also do that on tennis. So what we're looking at here is some data from the ATP Tour site. If you go onto the ATP or WTA Tour site, what you will find is that they actually have a whole list of statistics. They're looking at the number of break points converted, number of first serves that went in, the number of points won on that first serve, the number of returns made. You know, there's all sorts of data. Tennis is blessed with data, and even as the match is underway, you'll see those statistics echoed throughout the match, and they'll throw in a few other things like average service speed and so on. But you can look at all of the data that we've got here, and this tells you pretty much all of the stuff that we critically need to know, the things that we need to fully understand. And, you know, when we look at this data, there's one specific bit of data that we're going to need that will allow us to do all of the forecasting that we require to pick up and forecast a model going forward, whatever the score, and based upon how a player has played in the long term. Now, it's important with statistics that, you know, we're going to create a simple model here, but it's up to you how much depth you want to plug into that, because you can see there are loads of stats here, but we're only going to use one of those to create a model that will also forecast some of the other stats that you see on this particular slide. But when you actually put this into use, you're going to have to think about, what data do we use? How do we shape that data? How do we take into account stuff that's just happened, stuff that happened a month ago, any injuries that the player has and stuff like that? But fundamentally speaking, without going into that complexity, we need to create a model. So let's get on and do that. So using the data on the previous slide, we can actually plug that into a model, which I'm going to describe now. And basically, when we looked at that previous page, it was saying that the player that we're looking at gets their first serve in 62% of the time. So 62 times out of 100, the player gets that first serve in. I don't know why I'm doing that, but it just feels like I really should be doing something like a tennis action. Now, when that serve goes in, they actually win a point on serve 79% of the time. So the first part of the calculation that we do is we say 62% of the time, 62 times out of 100, 79% of those times they will get that serve in. So we can deduce from that if you combine those statistics together, we can basically say 79% of 62 equals just short of 50%. So that's the first bit of the calculation that we've done there. We're basically saying when a player gets up and serves, they will get a point 50% of the time just by doing that. Now, of course, if they don't get their first serve in, then they need to do a second serve. And the ATP stats that we were looking at basically indicated that of the second serves that they play, they win 57% of those points. So you can see a player has a much lower chance of basically winning a point on that second serve than the first serve. But we can combine those stats again by saying that 38% of the time they'll be doing a second serve, and 57% of the time they will win a point on that. So we combine those two together, and that ends up with a figure of 21.66, just below 22. So if we combine those two statistics together, we can actually see that the player will win a point on serve just under 70% of the time. And all that we're doing to get that statistic is we're working out how many times they have to do a first serve, which automatically tells us how many times they're going to do a second serve. And then we're looking at the data on how many points they win on that first or second serve. We're combining all of that together to get to our 71%. Now, the interesting thing is, if you actually look at that first slide with all the statistics that we put up there, you can actually see that that is exactly what those statistics tell us. We have successfully derived, using a bit of maths, what the chance of winning a point on serve is. And we've done that by combining some of the other statistics that we've seen there. The first serve percentage, the second serve percentage, chance of winning a point on first, chance of winning a point on second, derives and matches the data that we see for actually winning a point on serve. Now, on each game, you're going to have to serve more than 1 point. So all we've done is we've worked out the chance of winning 1 point on serve. However, we can do some statistics and actually derive the chance of them winning that game on service by a number of different methods. We can basically say, what's the chance that they win the game? 40-love, 40-15, 40-30, an advantage game, deuce. We can do all of those statistics sort of relatively easily. And it's, the easiest one to do and explain is what the chances of a player winning a game to love. So this particular player has a 0.706 chance of actually winning a point on service. So when they get up and go to hit that serve, they've got a 70% odd chance, nearly 71% chance of winning that particular point. So if they're going to win a game 40-love, they're going to have to go 15-love, 30-love, 40-love game. They're going to need 4 points. So if we just do 0.71, or roughly that, you can see the exact number over here, to the power of 4, we're basically saying they've got 4 chances of getting this, and therefore they've got a 0.7% chance, 0.71% chance of getting a point on this particular serve, and they're going to do that 4 times to win the game. And that magically comes up with this number that you can see here. So it's saying there's about a 25% chance of winning a game to love. So, the returner will not get a point, the server will serve and win all of the points in that particular game. There's roughly a 1/4 or a 25% chance of that happening. Then you can do the same for 40-15, 40-30 and so on, as you can see we've done here. And then you just tally up and add all of those together, and that gives you the chance of them winning the game. So how accurate is this? let's go back and have a look at that ATP stats data and see what chance did the player have of winning a particular game. If we do that, miracle of miracles, you can see that it absolutely matches. And that is because, in football, I've described how all of the markets are intertwined and how goals dictate that. In tennis, the chance of winning a point obviously can be projected backwards and forwards and determine all of that as well. So when you look at that, you realize that in fact, when you're looking at the data, that's telling you lots of information. The only thing I would say is obviously the chance of winning a point on service is probably going to rise and fall over the course of the match. And also when you look at individual players, younger players that are at the top of their game are going to be able to hold that more consistently than perhaps an older player that is perhaps going to get a little bit more tired over a longer game. And also, there are a number of other factors in there. So we're creating a simplistic model here, but it's one that is accurate, that you can use as a base to do your own particular predictions on. Once you've worked out the chance of them winning a point on serve and the chance of winning a point on a game, then it's possible to actually do that over the course of an entire set. So if you worked out an individual serve, you can do a game, and if you can do a game, you can do a set. And if you can do a set, you can do the match, and boom, suddenly you have the odds that are available for that player to win that particular match. Now, the problem is, if you're slightly confused by some of the maths that we've done already, even though I've tried to simplify it, doing those calculations to do the entire match basically involves looking at every possible scenario that you could ever possibly have within a tennis match, and then actually fitting that model into it and then projecting it forward for every single projection, then adding up all of those. So if you think about it, there are hundreds of points in a match, there are loads of scores of games. It's almost impossible to do. But it's not, because we actually have a solution for you, and that solution is called Tennis Trader. You can use the basic stats that you've constructed within your initial model, and Tennis Trader will do all of the hard work for you and project it out across the entire market and across a number of different scenarios. So let's have a look at how you can use this amazing tool within BetAngel to be able to complete your model. So if you're going to roll these calculations out across an entire match, it gets very, very complicated because you've got hundreds of points, you've got scores of games, and loads of scenarios that could happen, tie breaks, all sorts of other stuff. So it gets really, really complicated from this point onwards to be able to put your statistics into a model and actually output some odds. However, if you're a BetAngel customer, you don't need to worry because it's all available for you. If you go into BetAngel Professional and you click on the tennis ball icon, you bring up Tennis Trader, and Tennis Trader is an industrial grade modeling tool for tennis. So if you work on any stats, you can put them into Tennis Trader, and Tennis Trader will output the odds for you. It will do all of the hard work for you. If this was a separate product to be sold into bookmakers, it would sell for a lot of money. You get it completely for free within BetAngel. But let me explain how we would use it in this particular circumstance. I've pointed it at a tennis match. We can use, if you want to play around with it, just use a tennis match that's at some point in the future. We don't need to worry about the specifics of that tennis match at this particular moment in time. What you will need to do is select what type of match it is. So I'm doing a 3-set match with a tiebreak allowed in the final set. And what I'm going to do is, next to the calibrate button, there is a calibration setting. So if I click on that, it brings up the calibration setting. And here you can actually enter the percentage chance that a player wins on serve. So if we have two players and one of them is priced, we've got this set at 62 and 66. If I apply that to the model, it will actually come up and actually price what the market will be. And we can adjust this to sort of indicate if it was a much closer and we think they're much more equally matched, you can see that it will price that as well. Or perhaps you've got one player that is much stronger than the other, and you can see that it puts the odds in there as well. And of course you can do it the other way around. If you want to figure out what the market is telling you and you see a set of odds, you can actually, as long as you make sure you set the match type correctly, you can actually go in and get an understanding of exactly how strong it thinks, the market thinks one player is against another, and then you can take a value position against that or a trading position. Now the thing that you'll be interested in as well is if you actually look on the game matrix here, you can actually put in the two values, because obviously you need one player against another. That almost requires a separate video to discuss the differential between two players. But you would put in the value against both of these players, and then it will actually be able to project out exactly how that is going to play out over the course of a game and over the course of a set. So Tennis Trader does all of this for you. You fiddle around with the core values within the model, and then Tennis Trader will actually pump out the odds for you. You don't need to do any of the complicated calculations that go behind that. You don't need to stress yourself out with the maths of it. Tennis Trader will do it all for you. And if you go onto the match grid, then you can actually define custom scores. So you can begin to look at particular areas within the match that may interest you. And then you can sort of say, well, if he's a 2 games to 1 up and is a set up, what will the odds be, and stuff like that. And then you can start to sort of fiddle around with the data here and see how that is likely to influence things, and what will happen within the match, and how that influences the likely outcome. And this is really beneficial from a trading perspective, because as the match progresses, you can then begin to understand what the market's telling you, whether it's discounting information into the service game of each or both players. But also from a value perspective, by adjusting these values here, you can actually come up with the odds that you should expect to see for the entire match. So if you're having a bet before the match is underway, you can use the Tennis Trader model to actually predict and understand what the predicted odds will be based upon any of the statistics that you're using or that you have collated. So yeah, if you want to understand how to create a tennis model, that is roughly how you would do it. There is a lot more detail you can go into if you wish. But if you want to play around with that and you want to see the impact that your statistics will have on the outcome of a match, then you have the perfect tool in BetAngel called Tennis Trader that will allow you to do exactly that without any of the hard work that you'd have to do if you had to create your own model. So anyhow, I hope that that video has been useful for you and explained how we have been able to successfully create and understand how to create a betting model for tennis markets.